Okay, well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Father, we just ask that you just bless this time together, that we hear what your Spirit is saying, that, Father, that we would be inspired, encouraged, strengthened, and built up as a body and as individually as we close out here today and as we begin the new week. So, Father, we just bless you and honor you for it in the name of Yeshua. Amen. All right, so I want everybody to go with me over to Genesis chapter 11. We are pushing November 1st on our calendar. And that is a hard date that PayPal is giving everybody, that if you say something outside of the approved narrative, PayPal has taken it upon themselves to levy a $2,500 fine.
Wow.
So those that give online on PayPal, I want you to stay tuned because we are going to open up a new account. I'm not sure exactly which one we're going to use at this point in time. I'm playing around with Give, Send, Go, maybe, to set up the account there, and then close out the PayPal account. So I know a number of people, they give one-time gift regularly, which we certainly appreciate online. And then others have set up a payment. It's like an automatic monthly draft. And we appreciate that too. But if we close out PayPal, we'll want you to shift that over to whatever the new one is. We'll send out notification on exactly what that is and when it's done so that you will know, because we certainly don't want to be fined $2,500 because it would bounce. But nevertheless, we don't need to have grief come to this ministry, because we want to be good stewards of the finances that the Father gives us. And so just stay tuned to that. And we certainly want to say we appreciate your giving. Right now it's still open, so if you want to give online, you can go to the Life of Worship PayPal account, or you can go to Life of Worship Amarillo.org, and you can click on that donate button, and you can give online right there. That link is still open, but a new one, when we get it done, will be added to the website. So that's just some housekeeping as we go into this. So is everybody with us now? Genesis chapter 11, and beginning with, this is going to be verses 1 through 9. We're going to be talking a little bit about as I mentioned earlier, this whole issue about Babel and the Tower of Babel. And it's something that a lot of times we never get to in the Torah portion. We talk about so many other issues because there's a lot going on in the Torah portion, and we rarely get to this one. And so we're going to touch on it today. And because there's I think it's some nuggets in there worth digging for. Father, give us ears to hear and eyes to see what you're trying to tell us, that you're wanting to speak to our hearts about today in the name of Yeshua. Genesis 11:1, it says, "Now the whole earth had one language and one speech." Now, doesn't that sound like the same thing? One language and one speech, except said in two different ways? But is it the same thing? Okay, I asked the question. You probably say, well, probably not. So, one language in the Hebrew is Sefa Echat. There's that word Echat. Have anybody heard the word Echad? Echad?
Yes.
To be Echad, to be as one. Yahweh is Echad. We say that in the Shema, that Yahweh is Echad. So Echat, and which means one language. Sefa Echat, one language and one speech. Well, get this, it's Udvarim Echadim, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east. Have you heard that phrase around here before? From the east, which is Kedem. And they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." But Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yahweh said, indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahweh scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore its name is called Babel, because there Yahweh confused their language of all the earth, and from there Yahweh scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. All right, so we have some things. One language, one speech. In the land of Shinar, we have this issue of making bricks and building a tower, that they would make a name for themselves. A name for themselves. And the tower called Babel, they had a language that was scattered or separated into 70 languages. And the very thing that they wanted to do, did you see that? Let us build a city. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. And what happened to them? They got scattered over the face of the earth. So I want to ask you this question. When the Almighty comes down, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yes.
Can be both.
Depends on what season he's in.
I tell you what, so in this circumstance, yeah, he comes down because he's not pleased.
Yeah, that's not good.
And so it was his decision to break up their unity and to scatter them and to destroy their building project. Building project? How many building projects have you been part of?
Many.
How many churches have you gone to in the past and they said, it's time for us to build a project for God to come and dwell in our midst?
Build it and they will come.
When there was a building project once once upon a time, but it was not a fairy tale. That building project was ordained by Yah, and it was called a tabernacle in the wilderness.
Yeah, come on.
Was there an ordained building project when they went to Jerusalem? Did God ordain the building of a temple? Or was his original building project always a mishkan, a tabernacle in the wilderness that was brought to Jerusalem? Okay, did you ever question that? Exactly. Because what type of stones, let me ask you this, what type of stones were supposed to be part of the altar?
Unhewn.
Unhewn stones. What type of stones did they use in the building of the temple?
Hewn.
If we are if we are the living stones, why are we hewn or unhewn?
Unhewn. We should be unhewn.
Unhewn, because we're not bricks. Bricks are identical. Bricks are made of mixture. One composite and another put together to make those bricks. Bricks can be small and they can be large, but bricks are bricks, made to be identical. All right, so just some thoughts for you. And so this whole earth had one language and one speech. And are those one and the same? One language and one speech?
I don't think so.
One language, and what is it implicating is the question here, in other words. So, because we have a differentiation in the Hebrew, a safa echat, which means one language, and one speech is udvarim echadim. Echad, except echadim. So, speaking about this is speaking about perhaps a common language and a unity of thought. Now, where are we on the timeline of things today? What do they need to do to the world? Have you ever heard of this thing called the Great Reset?
Yeah.
They have to destroy everything that we know so that we're crying out to bring some type of order out of chaos. So that in the order out of chaos, everyone will say, at least it's relief. We'll all be of one mind. How do we get to one mind? Well, the artificial intelligence.
Take the raw pill.
Artificial intelligence that connects one person to the next, that connects one person to the computer and the World Wide Web, and put everything together. That's how you bring it all. So anything that's abstract thought or narrative that does not agree, then it must be eliminated, and therefore, because it does not bring about the unity that they want to build. Can you say the Tower of Babel is being rebuilt once again? If you look at the symbology of the European Union, did you know one of the pictures is the picture of the Tower of Babel? You can look it up online. If you look up images for the European Union, you see the Tower of Babel. So what is the whole purpose of all of that? Well, it's because they want to draw people together into one form of thought, a similar mindset. Anybody outside of that mindset? They have stated their purpose through their actions. And through those actions, it are this huge amount of stored guillotines, ready to eliminate anybody that does not have the proper mind.
You will be assimilated.
You will be assimilated. You will be part of the board, or you will be destroyed. Okay, all right, just some thoughts there. But let's look on a little bit more about this. So we have this idea of common language and a unity of thought, and the shared thought was rebellion against Yahweh. That's the bottom line. And so to build upon this idea of rebellion against Yahweh was in verse 2 when it says they journeyed from the east and they found a plain in the land of Shinar. So from the east is a Hebrew idiom which means to travel away from Torah. Yes, moving away from Torah. If you're going to the west, you're going towards Torah. If you're going to the east, you're traveling away from Torah. And so that word is kedem. Now let's look at some other places that connect kedem. Let me put that word on the board. Why is the Hebrew so important to know?
Because it's the roots.
It gives this depth, the depth of the meaning.
That's
So-
foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this word kedem, which can mean east, it also has some other meanings. And in Psalm 55:19, Psalm 59:19, it says, El will hear and afflict them, even he who abides from of old. Well, kedem can mean old. And from the prophet Micah, he connects the word kedem with the Messiah. It's in Micah 5:2 says, But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, of kedem, from everlasting. And they're leaving the east, they're going west. Go west, young man. And so going on. All right, how about this? Matthew 24:27. Now we're talking about connecting Yeshua the Messiah, who is the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth was from of kedem, of old, from everlasting. So where did Messiah come from? From everlasting, from of old. He was slain from the foundation of the earth. So from the very beginning, we see that Messiah comes. Now the connection is Matthew 24:27. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. So where did the Son of Man come from? He came from of old. from Kedem, from the east, as the lightning flashes. Okay, do you see where it's coming from? We're connecting some dots here, some things you probably didn't look at it from that direction before. And then we have an interpretation of Genesis 11:2 from Chazal. Chazal is talking about this journey away from the ancient one. So Genesis 11:2, talking about they journeyed from the east. He says it's journeyed away from the ancient one. So the people in Babylon journeyed away from the ancient one. And what were they doing? They were distancing themselves from God. Do you ever distance yourself from God? What did you do when you found yourself a long ways away from Him? You had to do something. You're in the midst of despair. You're in the plains of Shinar.
Yeah.
Well, in the plains of Shinar, if you compare that to Israel, in the plains of Shinar, it is where the Euphrates and the Tigris are. And so what you see after the high water season, you see all sorts of silt that is deposited in the land. The land is very rich. You can grow all sorts of different things there. And so this is the land that they came from, but there's no rocks. There's no stones. But there's plenty of silt. There's lots of mud. So what are the building materials of the people in the land of Shinar, the land of Babylon? Is bricks. Yeah, so they had to engineer some things in this area because they wanted to build something in their own image or out of their own unity, out of their own mind. They wanted a gateway into heaven, but the only way to build it was to design it themselves. They weren't bringing it from the land of Israel, because in the land of Israel, you got plenty of rocks. And plenty of those rocks are what are supposed to be used, which speaks about us, unhewn stones to build an altar. Okay, so they journeyed away from the ancient one. They distanced themselves from Yahweh, and they built a tower to make a name for themselves, which really indicates they wanted to establish something because they had no interest in the Almighty. Think about that.
Sad but true.
Proverbs 18:20. Let's contrast it. It's Proverbs 18:10. 18:10. The name of Yahweh is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. Compared to the Tower of Babel, right? So the rebellious will build something to make a name for themselves. Was it successful or not successful?
Not.
Because they departed from His perfect plan. But His perfect plan is to make a name for Himself. Okay, Genesis 12:1. This is going to connect us to Abraham, or Avram, which is going to be next week's Torah portion. Genesis 12:1. Now Yahweh said to Avram, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. You shall be a blessing." So what did Abraham do? He journeyed from the east. So what is Yahweh called Abraham to do? This is why we follow after the footsteps of Abraham. Get out of that land of Shinar. Yeah, cross over. Let's get out of there. Let's move away from that. Let's journey away from that land. He was from Ur, which is located near the Tower of Babel. And during the course of the journey, he calls upon the name of Yahweh. He didn't lift up his own name. Okay? He didn't bear down and say, "I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to get through it somehow or another." I guess there's another way of looking at it. Another way of saying, I'm going to break through. I'm going to get this thing done. You know what that is? You know, lots of times people will force it through by the strength of their own arm. Do you know what's another way that people do it? I'm just going to say it. They commit suicide because they don't think God's big enough. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's for somebody right now, but I just want you to know that don't do it. Don't go the way.
No,
There's no strength in that.
and there's no
Right.
But
forgiveness.
God's given you strength to walk through it
Yes.
and to go over that and to overcome that because He's given you His name.
That's right.
All right, let's go on.
It's bigger.
He's bigger. So Abraham journeyed from the east. Genesis 12:7 says, "To your descendants I will give this land." And there he built an altar to Yahweh, who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east, where he built an altar to Yahweh and called on the name of Yahweh. So going back to this issue with the tower in Babel, and let's look and get some understanding about the location. So the earliest known inhabitants of Mesopotamia, where this was located, in the plains of Shinar, were the Sumerians. Have you ever heard of the Sumerians and the Sumerian texts? In fact, some people look at these Sumerian texts that talked about Nibiru, this planet, this called the destroyer, that comes in alignment with Earth, that brings a destruction upon the Earth. Well, the Sumerians are the names of the people that are from the land of Shinar, and they're associated with a particular character whose name is Nimrod. Genesis 10:8 says, Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Echad, or Asad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. So those are the names of some of the cities of those areas. The city of Babylon lies in the land of Shinar, and its location is not disputed. It, by the way, is about 50 miles south of the current area called Baghdad. Ever hear the name Baghdad?
Mhm.
Like shock and awe? Remember in Desert Storm, they went in, they just blew up a lot of infrastructure, and a lot of innocent people were killed.
It's far from Baghdad.
It's about 50 miles south of Baghdad. So, what do you think Yahweh saw when he came down and he looked to see what was going on with man? By the way, these are the descendants of Noah.
Yep.
It was just a few short generations. And here we have the population, the main population of the world was right there in Mesopotamia. So he came down and he would have seen the city of Babylon. And he would have seen along the banks of the Euphrates palm trees that line the river. He would have also seen these wide streets. This is what this area had. Wide streets, high buildings, great walls. You would have seen it from a distance from the plains because it's flat. You would have seen this amazing city rise up from the plains, right? If you're driving in from Dumas, anybody drive from Dumas going south?
Yeah.
And as you start going down into the Canadian River Valley, what do you see in the distance south of you? You see the horizon and the city of Amarillo with the few tall buildings that we have. You'll see them rise up. You'll see the power plant that they want to shut down within 10 years. Going right along from that. So they would have also seen some irrigation systems from the Euphrates irrigating all the fields in that area. So this is really lush for food. It fed all the people. The people are like, yeah, we're strong. Look what we did. Look what we built. So this is the spirit of the people that Yahweh was looking at. Now, quoting from Saudi AramcoWorld.com, Saudi AramcoWorld.com. Here's a quote. In digging up of the history of Babylon, archaeologists found that in every important ancient town in the land between the rivers, there existed the remains of tower-like structures called ziggurats. They also discovered representations of stepped towers on seals, amulets, cylinders, and bas reliefs, all as well as cuneiform texts giving the names and dimensions of the towers. Eventually, near what is now the village of Hileh in Iraq, they uncovered the ground plan of a particularly large tower. It was made of burnt bricks and was some 300 feet square. Texts found in the ruins called it Etta Menanke, the house of the foundation of heaven and earth. The text also told of its restoration during the reign of Nabopolassar in 625 BC, mentioned baked bricks, streams of bitumen, the council of Babylonian gods, and some 60 years later, the conscription of foreign labor by the famous Nebuchadnezzar to continue the restoration. So, yeah, the conscription, in other words, they enslaved people to rebuild it. Okay? For thousands of years, apparently ziggurats were an integral part of Mesopotamian cities, each differing from the other in detail, like the cathedrals of Europe, but essentially the same massive cube-like blocks with stepped back upper terraces and monumental stairways leading to the upper sections, from which spiral stairs ascended to the top platform on which a temple, which stood a temple or shrine. Now, I'm not an artist, but I have a picture of some type of winding ziggurat that gets narrower at the top. That's a horrible rendition. And at the top, some type of monument, some type of edifice, some type of altar. So these areas were bigger at the bottom, and then they got progressively smaller as they went to the top. And there was a staircase. You follow around to get all the way up there to the top. Now, y'all can do your own rendition of your own towers and ziggurats. That's mine for today. Okay. And I did that with my left hand. This tower that was called Etta Menanke, the house of the foundations of heaven and earth, may have been the first pagan temple. And again, visible from miles around. You would have seen it rising above the plain of Shinar. There's a deeper connection with this tower, which is in Babylon, which means gate of God.
Wow.
Gate of God. By the way, I'm going to put it on the board so you can actually see it. Gate of God with a little g God. And there's a deeper, and we see there's a story that occurs a little bit later with Jacob in Genesis 28:10 through 17. Genesis 28:10 through 17. It says, now Jacob, or Yaakov, went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder, or the Hebrew word for that is sulam, was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. And there the angels of Elohim were ascending and descending on it. Verse 17. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob found another place that he called the gate of heaven. But in Babylon, they had a place that they named called the gate of God. Are y'all with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. So this Hebrew word for ladder is sulam. Write it on board if you're taking notes. It's a Hebrew word, means ladder. There's so much in this ladder, by the way. There is a connection, by the way, which we've talked about here, is about the DNA, right? It's built like a ladder, like a twisting, like a spiral
Yes.
ladder. Okay. Robert Alter suggests that it most likely resembled a ramp. So talking about Jacob's ladder, most likely resembled a ramp.
Ooh.
So you think about the DNA strand and it's a twisting ladder. Well, think of it as a ramp leading to Elohim. So, or you might say as Robert Alter suggests that it resembled a ramp akin to those found in ancient Mesopotamian ziggurats, which often had vast multiple ramps with terraced landings. The phrases to its top, the phrases its top reach to heaven and gate of heaven recall the intentions of the Tower of Babel. According to Sarna, the ancient ziggurat symbolized that gate between the heavenly and the earthly worlds. So what is Jacob dreaming? Because at this point in time, he's never been over to Mesopotamia. He's not ever seen a ziggurat. But he sees something in this dream. But what does he see? He sees a vertical bridge between heaven and earth. But what is the place that he is where is he having this dream? It's the same place where Isaac was nearly sacrificed. And so Jacob now is at the same place that his grandfather Abraham had been. And he has this prophetic dream that connects heaven to earth. And what happened at that place? It was where the ram was caught in the thicket of thorns that was sacrificed upon the altar that Abraham had built from unhewn stones. When I say unhewn, uncut stones. Okay? Uncut stones. So he gets up and says, surely this is, I'm thinking now my mind went blank. Surely God is in this place.
Yes.
And he made a vow that he would return to this place. Well, what is another place of this special location? Could they be very well be the place where they built the temple? They built the altar?
Could be.
The place that Yeshua would be sacrificed? This connection between heaven and earth? Who is our connection? And what is it that Jacob saw? All right, y'all with me?
Yes.
John 1:51 says this, and he said to him, most assuredly, I say to you, hereafter, you shall see heaven open and the messengers of Elohim ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. I wonder where Yeshua said that. I wonder what location that Yeshua was at when he said, you're going to see the messengers of Elohim ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Or was he speaking prophetically about this place where Jacob was, where Jacob got up the next morning and said, surely Elohim is in this place? Could it possibly be that place where Abraham set up an altar that he nearly sacrificed his son Isaac, but instead there was a ram that was provided in the thicket of thorns?
What verse was that again?
John 1:51. Nothing that man can do, that is, nothing that we can do, we cannot build any type of ziggurat, any type of connection, because there's only one connection between heaven and earth. Are y'all with me?
Yep.
So, these man-made structures may be a house, but they're not going to be a house of Elohim, because over there in Babylon, where they built these structures, what type of land did I say it was? Silt, sand, shifting ground, shifting sands. What did Yeshua talk about shifting sands and building upon the house? Matthew 7:26. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. So we're not going to be building any types of great connections between heaven and earth on the shifting sands of the silt layer of the deposits of the river of Euphrates. It's not going to happen.
Nope.
But we will see at some point in time when that river completely dries up, some type of creatures and beings will rise up from that area, and it will be demonic. And that's not where the Father had in mind for us. Because anything that we build outside of His place that's not on the rock, will fall for sure.
Yeah.
So let's look at something that Jacob did. Yaakov, Bereshit, or Genesis 28:11. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. And he took the stones. The word, he took the stones. He took the stones. This 17. I'm sorry, the stones, not 17. Evanim. Evan is the singular. It's very important that we see this in the Hebrew. Is the singular for stone. So what happens in Hebrew when you add the im to it?
Plural.
You make it plural. So it says in Genesis 28:18, then Yaakov rose early in the morning. Well, in 28:11, he took the stones of that place and put it at his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. He took the stones. So, speaking about the stones of the altar that Abraham had made, he took the stones and put it at his head. But follow with me here. Genesis 28:18, skipping down a few extra verses. Then Yaakov rose early in the morning, and he took the stone, the Evan. So he took the stones and put it at his head. But he rose the next morning and took the stone that he had put at his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. Did something miraculous take place overnight? That could the stones have been gathered together and became one stone? So it's suggesting here, there's a Jewish midrash that talks about an understanding of the stone is to be the unity of all Israel, upon which connection will be made between heaven and earth. So that's a concept, it's a thought. And differing from reaching up into the heavens, trying to make a man-made way to heaven, but rather in the unity when all of Israel comes together as one. And as opposed to unity made of bricks. It's not going to happen.
No,
Right?
no mixture in unity.
Or shall we say, unity that comes together with Messiah,
Yes.
where heaven becomes to earth. Earth touches heaven. It's just some thoughts to chew on.
That's right.
So let's take another closer look about the ziggurats in the Tower of Babel, in which the Tower of Babel was built. The sand that's being dumped during flood season constantly settles and building on it is like building on quicksand. And it's been discovered that these ancient engineers used a very modern technique to solve the problem. And they would lay down alternating layers, first brick, then sandy soil laced with reed matting. And they formed huge terraces from these layers. And then the bricks took the vertical load, and the tough matting kept the structure from leaning to the side when it got wet. And today we call this technique building with composite materials. And archaeologists have located over 20 of these ziggurats in the area that were first built over 4,000 years ago.
Wow.
So we use the same technology today that they were using back then. But technology leads to arrogance. In fact, what happened when they said when the Twin Towers were destroyed? When the Twin Towers came down, we will rebuild. Stronger than we were before. Yeah. Taking that Isaiah chapter
Out of context.
9, is it chapter 9 or chapter 9?
Yeah.
I think it is, chapter 9.
And taking it out of context because of their arrogance.
Yep.
Genesis 11:3 says, and they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, they had asphalt for mortar. Now, just to keep you keeping this bitumen that's there, what is that from?
Isn't that good?
It's pitch and tar. And what is rich in that area of Iraq?
Oil.
Oil. Just think of it. It must have been bubbling up through the surface. They just had plenty of it. And
They have some of the tallest.
no
buildings.
wonder the West wanted to go in and take its resources.
Yep.
Since there's virtually no stones in Babylon, and in Israel there's lots of stones. I think we pretty much covered that. We do see that they challenged the Creator by building something from bricks and mortar.
Yep.
Challenging the Creator by building something from bricks and mortar. Do you see anything in the Torah? Do you see anywhere in the Torah about building a house of Yahweh?
Cornerstone, we're the
From
living
anything,
stone and
from anything
cornerstone.
other than from the very materials that the tent of meeting was made in. Why do they want to build a third temple? Some have said that the third temple was already built by Herod. Because there was a first temple built by Solomon, there was a second temple that was rebuilt during the time of, was it Ezra and Nehemiah? And yet Herod rebuilt the second temple, which would have been called the third temple, that seems to go in line with the temple described in Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 44, I believe it is. So would it be the fourth temple that they want to build again? And why? And what are they going to build it out of? Are they going to cut stones? Are they going to use bricks to build it? What are they going to build this new temple with? Anything other than unhewn stones, or actually anything other than what is described in Exodus and those building materials? And those seem so temporary, because stone would build a permanent edifice. And if it builds a permanent edifice, then can one man be pointed to and say, that's the architect of this third temple or fourth temple or whatever you want to call it? Will God get the glory for it?
No.
In the first temple, Hiram was hired to build it for Solomon. So think about this. But who was given credit for the first tabernacle, the tent of meeting in the wilderness? Who was given credit for it? Yahweh was. They were the masters, they were the architects of it, they were the craftsmen of it, the ones that were given an anointing and that was poured out upon them, that they created beautiful, ornate work that could all be set up and taken down quickly. So do we need, or what's it pointing to if we are the temple of the living God? That we're mobile, that we can gather together, or we can be taken down and moved to another location. Then it doesn't matter if we've got bricks and mortar, drywall, and ceiling tile, and carpet. What type of people are we? It's just a thought. Where does the presence of God live?
Come on, inside of God.
Is it inside some type of place? Are we taken to the very presence of God through some gateway because a building was built?
Nope.
Nope.
Is it because we gather together in the place that he calls us?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, just some thoughts. Some things that need to be looked at. All right, let's look at some other things. Brad Scott said some interesting things. He has an article that's called Bricks for Stones over at wildbranch.org. And he gives us some lessons here. So I'm going to read this. It's a little long, but I want you to be with me. Stay with me on this. He said, during one of our recent trips to Israel, we were taken to one of many tells. That is a hill. A tell is a hill. It's actually a tell is a mound where an ancient city used to be and got buried. Okay? And then, so the archaeologists go in and they dig it up, and they find the city. That's what a tell is. And it's a tell that was near Jerusalem. As the tell leveled off at the top, there were several very old ruins of the small town left there. The walls were now only about 4 feet high, and there was a noticeable difference in the quality of the remaining structures that was highlighted by a dark chalk one. This line marked out the end of the original stone structure and the beginning of the more modern renovation made of bricks. What was obvious was that the bricks were crumbling away atop of the very old solid stone. I snapped some quick shots, then walked away from the group for a while to ponder what my father was saying to me at this moment. 3 words continually spoke to me over and over. This is restoration. Going on, he says, the Tower of Babel. This I propose to you as the principal model of the differences between the God of stones and the God of bricks. Bricks are made by mixing clay, mortar, and water. Stones, however, are created by God. When man is finished with bricks, every brick looks pretty much the same. Stones come in all colors, sizes, and shapes.
That's right.
But yet they are all still stones. He says, we recall in Kepha, and Peter also reminded us of this in one of his epistles. I'm thinking right now of the New Jerusalem. What are the foundations of the walls of the New Jerusalem? Stones, precious stones. 1 Peter 2:1 through 5. Therefore, laying aside all malice, all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and all evil speaking, as newborn babes desire the pure milk of the word, that you may grow thereby. If you indeed have tasted that Adonai is gracious, coming to him as to a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by God and precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Yah through Yeshua the Messiah. We are living stones. Now he goes on and writes, we are living stones because he is the stone.
That's right.
Believers can have unity with diversity as portrayed by stones in the spiritual house because they are built on the cornerstone of the house, not because they all look exactly alike. Bricks are not only man-made and formed by mixing, but bricks also begin to crumble through time. When they begin to deteriorate, masons will use the most modern methods to patch them back up. A foundation of stone, however, will stand forever and solid throughout time. And when the bricks finally crumble away, that firm foundation laid down from the beginning will still be there. What is your faith built on? Going on, that was me adding that.
That was
phrase in.
good.
Going on, he writes, the more we struggle to look the same, the more divided we become.
Mhm.
I propose to you that religious systems are no different. Stop and focus just for a moment on the following religions and see what first comes to mind. Hare Krishna, Buddhism, the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church,
Yeah.
Hasidism, Mormon missionaries,
Yeah.
Islamic clerics. What do you see? Bricks, bricks, bricks.
Bricks and bricks.
Conforming to man-made images and appearances.
Yep.
We are told to conform to the image of Messiah.
Yeah.
And so we are not told what he looked like.
Yep.
We know he wore tzitzit, but we're not told whether he wore blue and white, tied with knots at 10, 5, 6, 5, or whether they were, if you ever made a tzitzit, right? Sorry, how do you tie the knots? 10, 5, 6, 5, or whatever. Or whether they were 4 inches long or 4 feet long. What we do know about our Redeemer is his function and his purpose.
Yes.
Going on, as one carefully peruses the commandments, ordinances, and statutes revealed in the Torah, it soon became evident that our Father is not always explicit in every detail.
Yes.
We know we are to keep the Passover, but we are not told all the minutiae of this feast. We are instructed that there was a lamb roasted and the blood applied to the doorposts. There was unleavened bread and bitter herbs. We're not told to place them on a special plate or add carousel or parsley in the salt water. So I'm submitting the following possibility. Could it be that because we are designed to be stones and not bricks, that our Father can accept each one of his children's unique responses to his feast? Is it possible that in some sense, and it's all right, that we're not all marching lockstep? It seems to me that our Father knew from the beginning exactly what we are like.
Yep.
We know that we would read his words, mix them with our various interpretations, and then primarily through guilt and ecclesiastical cohesions, make everyone else conform to our interpretation. According to John in its commandments of our Father that are not grievous. Okay? 1 John 5:2. By this we know that the love of the children of Yahweh, that we love Yah and keep his commandments, for this is the love of Yah, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. Brad Scott says this, I propose to you that it is our interpretation of the commandments of God that are grievous and burdensome, and not the commandments themselves. All religious systems are about the business of conforming you to the system and not to the Messiah.
That's right.
This is primarily accomplished by convincing the masses to conform to form, that is, make bricks, and not conforming to function and purpose.
Amen.
We hold to a religious system. Does Life of Worship have to be like any other gathering that's on Shabbat? Are we just another stone here? Or are we going to be a brick? Do we have to
Prefer stone.
do
Stone.
certain things in certain ways, in certain rituals, in certain way that other people do it? Or is it okay that we worship like we do? Is it okay that I think it is?
Yep, if he doesn't reveal something else, it is okay.
But talking about these false systems of religion that began in the land of Babylon will meet their final judgment in the end days. Because why? Because the enemies of the Lamb will be of one mind. led by the evil one. Let's look at it, Revelation 17:5. We're going to close up. Revelation 17:5, and on her forehead a name was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and of the abominations of the earth. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. For Yah has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind, to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of Yah are fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. At 18:1, for these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the authority was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. So, here it is, Revelation 18:21. Then a mighty angel took up a stone, like a great millstone, and threw it into the sea, saying, with violence, the great city of Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be found anymore. Now, I want you to reflect on something that I said earlier, talking about who are we? Not only are we stones,
Living
but are we not children of the Most High?
Yes.
When Yeshua said, if you cause any of these children to stumble, let them be tied, I think I'm paraphrasing, tied to a millstone and cast into the deepest of the sea. Okay, I'm just thinking about this great stone will be thrown in 18:21, a stone like a great millstone, and throw it into the sea. Thus, with violence, the great city Babylon shall be thrown down, shall not be found anymore. This Babylon has caused many to stumble. So, do you see any importance to this Tower of Babel in relation to where we are today?
Oh, yeah.
And how the enemy is trying to divide the nation and to divide the Hebrew nation even? Divide brother from brother and sister from sister and mother from father and all that sort of stuff and all that great stuff. But guess what? He's got a plan and he's bringing us together.
That's right.
But Mark 3:24 gives us a warning. I'm going to close it with this. If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Mark 3:24. So, let Babylon not stand, but may the house of Yah endure forever. Amen? Let's stand up and we will be dismissed. Father, we thank you for this time here, the discussion of understanding, of seeing this whole concept of bricks and stones, and that, Father, that we want to be connected to the chief cornerstone. Let your word be preserved. Let us chew upon your truths. May we be nourished by it and encouraged as we go forth in this week. Let your hedge of protection be around us. And may we see you, the chief cornerstone, and let that gate of heaven be opened before us. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.